here we are once more at Queenstown, and we're going to go for a little ride. Nominally this was going to be to look at the remaining autopilot functions, but honestly there's not too much to say about that. We might comment a little bit on route, but we're just going to take a trip out and we'll look at some of the other systems as well as we go. So we're at Queenstown. It's early in the morning, the weather looks a bit crappy, but we should be able to get out of here. First thing we've got to do is have a listen to the 80s. That was the altitude alert, I'm not sure why it was doing that. So 80s, we need 126.4. Before I do that, I'm going to do one more thing which I've just remembered. I'm going to switch on the ADF radio as well. I'm going to press the flight elapsed time button. I'm going to press it again so we're on elapsed time. I'm going to hold the reset button down for 2 seconds, and so we're into setting the countdown timer. Actually I already had it set from before, so I've set it for 20 minutes and I'm going to let it run. The reason for that is just as it's going to beep when 20 minutes expires. That's just a reminder for me, because my cameras are going to stop recording after about 25 minutes or 30 minutes, so I don't want to get caught out by that again. So we've got the 80s, 126.4, dial it in.
Temperature 10°.0.
Okay.
UNH 1011.
1011.
By view of information Bravo.
Information Bravo.
Use runway 05.
05.
5 degrees 2 knots.
Just there.
Visibility greater than 20 kilometers.
I missed the wind, something at 2 knots.
10°.0. UNH 101.
Okay, it's 2 knots, so we don't care really. Okay, one ground, 121.9. You're going to notice I've currently got my push to talk button mapped to the autopilot test button, so when I talk on the radio you'll probably see the indicator lights go on as well. Don't worry about that. Queenstown ground, de Havilland 404 Alpha Alpha, request startup.
De Havilland 404 Alpha Alpha, startup approved.
Thank you. Okay, so I can go ahead and start. Okay, we've started. We need the generators on. I've set up a flight plan on the GPS. We're going to go from here to Martins Bay Lodge, more or less directly. It's over some pretty tall mountains, but basically we're going to take off runway 5, which is just here, and we're going to make a left turn out, and we need to climb pretty pronto to get over the hills. Right, ready to go. Queenstown ground, de Havilland 404 Alpha Alpha, ready to taxi.
De Havilland 4 Alpha Alpha, taxi to holding point runway 05, 0 Alpha 3.
Taxi to holding point runway 05 via Alpha 3, de Havilland 4 Alpha Alpha.
De Havilland 4 Alpha Alpha, monitor Queenstown Tower 118.1.
Left my props feathered there, you might have noticed. 118.1. I'm using Vox ATC at the moment. That's what's talking to me on the radio. We should get some progressive taxi lights as well when we turn around and see. I'm sure there's still something wrong with my Queenstown. That taxiway just stops there in the grass, and also there's some. No, that's not very helpful with the lights, but never mind. I'm sure there's some sort of texture or slight elevation anomaly right about the middle of the runway. But anyway, that sky's a bit murky. We're not going to see much as we take off. Got to stop here at the hold.
Embraer 866, cleared for flyout at runway 05 approach, 15 miles to touchdown.
Queenstown Tower, de Havilland 4 Alpha Alpha, ready for departure.
De Havilland 4 Alpha Alpha, unable at this time.
Why? Come on, he's 15 miles out.
De Havilland 4 Alpha Alpha, runway 05 line up.
Thank you. Runway 05, line up, de Havilland 4 Alpha Alpha. Don't ask me to say again.
Embraer 818, climb to 5 level 110. Leaving altitude 4,300 feet, climbing flight level 110. Embraer 818. Seven 4 Alpha Alpha, left turn out VFR, surface wind calm, clear takeoff.
I'm busy. Left turnout, VFR, cleared takeoff, de Havilland 4 Alpha Alpha. That one, close down. That. Rudder trim, centered. We're going to go on to GPS, nav hold. We're ready. Let's go.
Hotel, flight publicist. Flight publicist, Golf Whiskey Hotel Whiskey Team.
Okay.
Runway 05 line up. Runway 05 line up.
Okay, we're on autopilot now. That's going to turn us onto that GPS track and going to take us through this soup, which is probably not, well, it's certainly not legal VFR. Can't see the surface, so we're going to be climbing all the way to 10,500 feet, in fact 12,500. So I'm going to set that up on the 12,500 is on the altitude alert. I'm going to press the altitude alert button. I'm going to tell you what that means in a minute. I've just got to change frequencies. De Havilland 4 Alpha Alpha, clear of the zone to the north, changing to en route frequency. New Zealand Centre, De Havilland 404 Alpha Alpha.
404 Alpha Alpha, New Zealand Centre.
It's the same woman. De Havilland 404 Alpha Alpha, 2 miles northwest Queenstown, altitude 7,000 feet, en route to Martins Bay Lodge. Request traffic advisories.
De Havilland 4 Alpha Alpha, 43043, and over.
Squawk 3043, De Havilland 4 Alpha Alpha.
New Zealand Centre, Pacific 564, flight level 300.
Ident, I don't have an ident button.
4 Alpha Alpha, radar contact, QNH1011.
QNH 1011, De Havilland 4 Alpha Alpha.
Zulu Kilo Papa Foxtrot Hotel, contact Northland Oceanic at 120.5.
So we've got the altitude alerter set to 10,500. So that's the altitude we want to cruise at. What's going to happen is several things. In fact, we're going to get 1,000 feet below that, so at 11,500, we're going to get an audible tone, and the light's going to go on the altitude alerter at 200 feet to go, so 12,300. The light's going to go out. There it goes at 11,500. Because we've slaved the autopilot to the altitude alert, as you see by this indicator here, the other thing that's going to happen is, as we approach that altitude, the aircraft's going to level out, so the speed's going to go up, and it's going to engage the altitude hold for 12,500. So that's going to be happening about now. In fact, there it goes. You can see we're pitching down. Rate of ascent is dropping. We're getting trim indications on the panel there, and the speed's going up. That's a very useful function of the altitude alerter. I'm going to cruise at about 35% power. I've marked up the quadrant here just to give me some indications for setting various power settings. We've got a nice overcast going down there in the valleys. I say nice, I mean it looks nice. It's not going to do us any favours if we've got this at the other end. We've only got one waypoint before the destination on this route, and it's just off the nose. I don't know if you can see that hump there coming through up through the clouds there. That's a little hump in the middle of the valley. We're going to basically, the airfield's about here, and we're going to go overhead the airfield, turn that way.
Traffic 4 miles, flight level 130 northbound.
I can't see the traffic. Oh, there it is. Traffic's in sight, de Havilland 4 Alpha Alpha. So we're just approaching the first waypoint now. It says 1 mile on there. And we'll be going in that direction. And there's the turn. And there's my timer. So just coming back to the altitude alerter, the main reason you have the altitude alerter is typically you'll be assigned, if you're flying in controlled airspace, you'll be assigned an altitude by air traffic control, or you'll choose one for your own flight plan anyway, as we have here. And you don't want to deviate from that, especially if it's been assigned by ATC. So what happens is you set that up on the altitude alerter, and if you deviate by more than 200 feet you'll get a light, and then when you get to 1,000 feet deviation you'll get an audible tone. So that's the main, regardless of whether it's hooked up to the autopilot or not, that functionality is the basic function of an altitude alerter. Oh, we can see Martin's Bay actually, you can just see the shoreline in a distance there, and so definitely no cloud cover there, so we shouldn't have a problem. So the other function of the altitude alerter, if we can connect it to the autopilot, as we've seen, we can get it to fly to an altitude and then dial in altitude hold for us. So we can do that on the way up.
5 miles, flight level 130 northbound.
Traffic inside de Havilland 4 Alpha Alpha. We can do that flying up to an altitude.
Contact Otter Oceanics at 120.5.
Or down to an altitude. Okay, so we can easily see Martin's Bay now, and you can see the tracks wanting to take us over all this bumpy stuff to get there. We're not going to do that. We want to fly into this valley, which you should be able to see on the left here. So I'm going to come off nav hold. I'm going to put us on heading hold, and I'm just going to hop over there. And the advantage of that is we can descend as we fly down the valley, because we're quite high here. It's going to take us a while to come down. So there's two other functions we can use with the autopilot in conjunction with the altitude alerter. That's a go-around function, we'll talk about that one first, and minimum descent altitude. MDA, it's kind of similar to the altitude alert for flying particular types of non-precision approaches. So I'm not going to say too much about that. You know, really there's a heck of a lot I could say about the autopilot that I haven't said already, but I really need to get into all the details of the different kinds of approach, ILS approaches and so on, and I don't really know enough about that to do anything like that at the moment. Okay, I'm over the cliffs now, so I'm going to start descending. I'm just finessing that IAS hold using the, oh, I've got ice. I want my pitot heat, I want my bleed air on. Well, I'll put windshield heat on. I'm not going to do anything about structural ice because I'm coming down.
New Zealand Center. Golf Speed Air Company shared with you at flight level 3. This is the 119, New Zealand Center.
Okay, the ice just disappeared. That wasn't very gradual. It just went. I can see a strip on the spit there. That's a strip that's going in that orientation. That's not the one we're going to land on. The one we're going to land on is this side of it, running left to right. So what we need to do is think about the wind. This is a very marginal strip. It's a gravel strip. It's plenty long enough, or at least it'll be plenty long enough in ideal conditions. It's very narrow. Now, if we've got any crosswind, it's going to be quite sketchy in terms of getting in safely. So we need to make some estimation of the wind. Of course, in real life we'd see signals, we'd see smoke maybe rising from the lodge, or we might see, we could tell by the wave pattern on the water. Trees, there's plenty of trees around, but again we can't see the trees swaying, so we've got to do something else. So this strip runs 0220, so the headings we need to remember are 20, which is the landing, we're hoping to land in that direction. Crosswind is 29, downwind is 02, that's over the ocean. Base leg is 11. The base leg has to be a little bit curved because this hill basically is going to be in the way. Whoa, where did the visibility go? Oh, that comes back. So we're at 700 feet. We're going to overfly the airfield threshold on airspeed hold. So it's quite precisely holding an airspeed for us. And we're going to check out the ground speed on the GPS. So we're on heading 290, which is perpendicular. We should be flying over the strip right now. There it is. There's the strip. And ground speed 106. So I'm just going to write that down. That's right to left on our approach. I'm just basically now starting a big circle, and then we're going to overfly the strip in the opposite direction. Still on altitude, still on airspeed hold. So again, it's maintaining the airspeed very precisely. I want to try and fly as close to over the threshold as we can, really, but I didn't do a very good 180 there, basically. So remember, the ground speed was 106, coming in the opposite direction. In this direction, where are we? So we've got 111. So comparing those two ground speeds, basically we've got 111 knots in one direction, 106 in the other, 5 knot difference, and that means we've got a 5 knot crosswind from the left on the approach. It's a little bit close for comfort, this turn. But we're going to make it. I'm going to go out over the ocean a little way and then basically do a 270 degree turn onto final. So what I'm actually going to do is, in the process of turning it round to drop into the circuit, I'm actually going to make a mistake and point it directly towards this range of hills, which is pretty catastrophic. And at the point at which I realise it's catastrophic, I'm just going to press the go around button and whack the power levers open. obviously what that did on the flight director was it actually set up an 8-degree nose up attitude. You remember we were on IAS hold and heading hold. It disconnected both of those modes, and so basically flew us out. All I had to do was put the throttles open and it flew us out of trouble. So that's the function of the go around button on the altitude alert. Alright, so now that's out of the way, we're going to take it down and land it for real. So where are we? So we're just turning onto our base leg now, which is 110 degrees, and that's the mountain we almost collided with earlier. So we're going to have to curve this base leg, base to final turn slightly. Take another 30 degrees. Okay, that should put us right on heading for the touchdown. Flying about 90 knots. Okay, that's not a bad rate of descent. I'm going to come off autopilot now. I'm going to go to 30 degrees of flaps. Trim it for about 80 knots, full flaps. Right, I'm going to try and come in not too steeply. A little bit slower really. So we're going to touch down right now. Try and keep it centered. There we go. Full reverse as soon as the nose wheel's down. Slightly drifting off the strip there. Brakes as well. Okay, reverse off. It's going to be tight to turn around here. Probably be brushing our wings in the bushes as well. There we go. We're not going to get it through there, so we'll just reverse it into this parking space here. Parking brakes on. Nice. Don't need to be on. Go off. Props to feather. Peel off. All the lights can be off. Pitot, bleeder off. Radio's off.